membership contributions made possible the production of the following special local program.
Emeryville, best known to most people in the Bay Area as the little industrial town with the big mudflats. Wedged between Oakland and Berkeley at the eastern foot of the Bay Bridge, it is within minutes' commute of San Francisco. And now, from behind this low-key facade, the biggest building boom in the Bay Area has erupted.
When you're talking a development program that the lowest figure is $500 million and the highest figure is $1 billion, it's a lot of money to change hands. And that's exactly where the problem is.
The little town of Emeryville is growing up as it becomes a utopia for developers. But for some, this building boom means trouble.
I was threatened the other day that my place would burn up if I didn't get smart.
Yet for others, the mud is turning into millions. Emeryville has always had a sinister reputation. In 1896, it incorporated in order to operate the Shell Mounds racetrack. During Prohibition, it was known for its speakeasies, dog racing, gambling houses, and bordellos. It was in 1928 that Earl Warren, then District Attorney of Alameda County, called it the rottenest city on the Pacific coast. In the early days, it was a town of stockyards and slaughterhouses. Trains traveling north and south would roll through Emeryville as the bay came right up to the tracks. In those days, people spent their weekends watching the Oaks baseball team, or they took the ferry boat to San Francisco. Strong leaders kept a firm hand on this Wild West town, which boasted no churches, no cemeteries, no movie houses. Family names like Emery, Doyle, and LaCoste were and still are familiar to just about everyone in town. Some things changed with time, and some things have changed very little. High rollers still gamble thousands in the card clubs that flourish along San Pablo Avenue.
Look hard, die young, and leave a beautiful memory. Don't want slow walking or sad singing. Let them have a jubilee. I want to leave a lot of happy women. I'm thinking pretty thoughts of me. I want to live fast, work hard, die young, and leave a beautiful memory. I won the hand. A hot car and a cowboy suit.
The players today are as colorful as the old-timers. Police Chief John LaCoste is a controversial figure. According to many people, he runs this little town of fewer than 4,000 people. A staunch Democrat, LaCoste is a leading fundraiser for the Democratic Party in California and chairman of its Northern California Finance Committee. Steve Shaddix, a former undercover agent and now a businessman in Emeryville. He was a close friend of LaCoste and is president of the EIA, the Emeryville Industries Association. EIA is now battling against developers and Police Chief LaCoste. Leo Macias is a small businessman. He has lived and worked in Emeryville for over 15 years. Now he is in trouble. Tom Wienis, the flamboyant former president of Lathrop Construction Company, is a close friend of Chief LaCoste. Wienis and Lathrop were pioneers in developing Emeryville. He is now accused of embezzling $3.5 million from Lathrop. He has lost money, status, and property. Among his properties was the Townhouse, a popular country western bar, which was also known as City Hall, because the police chief used to conduct much of his business from here. Chief John LaCoste has lived in Emeryville all of his life. Although he is often accused of controlling city politics, he contends that everything he does is for the good of Emeryville. On the day we went to visit Chief LaCoste, he took us for a tour of his city.
This is where we used to have the vast majority of problems, all through San Pablo here and 36th Street. One of the major prostitution places, like all through here, and narcotics and so forth. This entire area is the original old section of Emeryville. In fact, there's a southern triangle that we're coming up to on the left-hand side, which used to be almost exclusively French-Italian families. Straight ahead, Shell Development, and as you're probably aware, Shell is now down in Texas, and taking over that building was Cetus Corporation, a genetic engineering firm. Of course, in genetic engineering, I'd love to clone some more Democrats.
Across the tracks are hotels, condominiums, and offices. Emeryville's development started out on this peninsula, an area which is completely landfill. Tom Weenus was a pioneer bringing development to Emeryville.
Lathrop Construction Company came to Emeryville over 15 years ago. Started with a small office building and Denny's restaurant, a couple of sites like that. They turned out rather successfully, so we felt, hey, this is a good base of operations for the company.
From Denny's and a small office complex, Weenus and Lathrop went on to develop and build Watergate. This huge, luxurious condominium complex was originally built as apartments, and when it was converted to condominiums, it became the largest condominium conversion in the state. It went through the approval process in record time, thanks to a sympathetic city council and a huge lobbying effort in Sacramento. Here, the affluent and the trendy live the good life, surrounded by a yacht harbor, restaurants, and their very own shopping center. Across I-80 and the railroad tracks is Old Emeryville, a strange blend of housing and industry. It is in this area that the old-timers live, and it has long been the home of several large industries, PG&E, Del Monte Canneries, and several large trucking companies.
The people down there more or less still call this the old Emeryville.
Dutch and Dottie Heinz have lived in East Emeryville for most of their lives.
Very few of the people at Watergate very rarely come over here unless they have to, like to the post office or driving on through. But they have a fear of over here. Dogs, crime, and such as that. We don't have any stores here. We have no shopping center. We have to drive a distance or take a bus or a cab and to do any decent grocery shopping. People on this side are on, most of them are on limited income. And it makes it a little rough for them.
The people of East Emeryville are, for the most part, low-income families, minorities, and seniors, many of them on fixed incomes. They are leery of newcomers and changes. They stick together. Dottie Heinz is active in her community. She regularly volunteers at the Senior Citizens Center for their weekly bash. But things are changing in Emeryville, and the pace has begun to pick up in the last few years. Because of its proximity to San Francisco, it has become a prime area for development. 75% of the city has been declared to be within the redevelopment area, and now the focus of redevelopment is Area 5, located strategically along I-80 between the freeway and the railroad tracks. This location is a prime area for developers hoping to build high-rise offices, apartments, and condos. But some of the residents have serious questions about the way redevelopment is being done and the effects it is having on them. Laura Davenport is a resident of Watergate and a city council member.
The redevelopment area in Emeryville is almost, well, it's probably about 75% of the city. The only thing that's not included is the peninsula, only part of the peninsula. I've never quite understood why the east end of the peninsula, which has all these nice high-rise office towers behind us, is included in the redevelopment area, because a redevelopment area is supposed to be a blighted area.
Leo Macias owns a vending machine distributorship. As founder of the Emeryville Neighborhood Improvement Association, he was instrumental in forming the Redevelopment Agency.
At that time, the proposed purpose was to have the Redevelopment Agency loan some money to the residents, low-interest loans, to improve the homes in Emeryville. Now, what you have is, of course, you have all this high-rise development going around here, and the Redevelopment Agency is sort of drifted from its original intention to help the residents to helping big business now.
As redevelopment has taken off, so have property values. Heavy industries such as trucking and steel are being squeezed out, and new high-tech industries are moving in. Leo Macias is worried. His lease will expire next year, and he is having trouble finding a warehouse.
I want a warehouse. I want to buy a place here in Emeryville. Well, I get real estate brokers, real estate agents from all over coming to me, showing me places in Hayward, in Oakland, in Richmond. And why? I ask them why. I said, don't they have any place here in Emeryville that I can buy? And they says, no, Leo, I was told that you're supposed to be out of Emeryville.
Just why is Leo Macias being pressured to leave Emeryville? He contends that because he has openly complained, the Redevelopment Agency no longer sees him as an ally. But Emeryville has a long history of battles and controversy related to development. When Watergate was converted to condominiums by Lathrop, a battle between the residents and the developers followed. 2 city council members were recalled, and a $93 million lawsuit was filed against Lathrop. In the suit, residents claimed faulty construction, water leaks in their apartments, and that their garages are sinking. The suit is still pending. While president of Lathrop, Weenus went on to develop and construct other projects, including Cutter Tower and the Komatsu building, which are on the peninsula right next to Watergate. And he got into politics. In the 1980 city council election, Weenus, his wife, Lathrop Construction, and their attorney, John Carniato, contributed over $26,000 toward the election of council members Jim Golden and Wally Fox. Businessman Steve Shaddix also contributed to the campaign.
Well, the bulk of the last campaign, and there were many contributors, including myself, but the bulk of the last campaign was done by Tom Weenus, who gave about $25,000 to the campaign, the Fox Golden campaign. Now, that's a lot of money in a town this size. That's the money that was accounted for. Then you've got to go into the money that perhaps wasn't accounted for, that slips through the cracks, as it were.
The amount of money spent to elect council members Fox and Golden came to nearly $40 per vote, the most spent per capita on any election in the state.
I did contribute, I'd say, by standards, a considerable amount of money. I don't see anything wrong with it. I liked the people that I was contributing to. I liked their philosophy. I liked their feelings about Emeryville as a whole.
Although Police Chief LaCoste does not contribute to city council campaigns, he actively supports the candidates he believes in.
Well, I think it's important for every citizen to exercise their constitutional rights. I think because I'm a police chief or a policeman, that I do not have the right to voice an opinion on the political realities of my community. I have never campaigned as police chief. I so totally committed to this community and therefore pay attention to the facts and the issues. And so fortunately I'm able to have the ear of some of the council members, and they believe in my ability or trust in my overall outlook toward the city.
But controversy has followed both LaCoste and Weenus. Until this year, they were business partners in Hub Enterprises, a small company started up to help minority-owned businesses get started. Now, both LaCoste and Weenus are under federal grand jury investigation for false arrest and conspiracy. But as controversy surrounds the police chief and one of its major developers, it also surrounds the city itself and several of its council members. In order to improve the appearance of East Emeryville, the city established a paint program whereby qualified residents would be able to have their homes painted free of charge. The Heinzes tried to get their house painted.
They've painted a lot of the houses on this side. I tried to get mine paid and I couldn't. It's a conflict of interest because the wife's in the city council. Yet the same token, Esther Spriggs is on the city council, and her mother got 3 of her houses paid in, plus $180,000 cash at 3% interest, plus another $37,000 at 6 3/4% interest. Yet that's not a conflict of interest, mother and daughter. Yet man and wife, it's a conflict. Now, that is something I'll never understand. I just don't understand that.
Dutch Hines is openly critical of the Redevelopment Agency and of council member Esther Spriggs. Pearl Lee, Esther's mother, received over $200,000 in public low-interest loans to rehab 4 homes which she and her daughter co-owned. Because of possible violation of state laws governing conflict of interest, Spriggs transferred her interest in the homes just prior to the approval of the loans.
These properties did need rehabilitating, and because this particular property was terrible. Even the neighbors were complaining. And therefore they said in order for it to be rehabilitated, I would have to quit claiming and have no interest in the property. And that's what I did.
A few blocks away is one of Emeryville's newest housing projects. Completed in 1980, Emery Bay Village is a 112-unit condominium complex. The project was designed to provide housing for low and moderate income residents of East Emeryville. 30-year mortgage loans carried an 8 3/4% annual interest rate, several points below market rate at the time of sale. The Redevelopment Agency entered into an agreement with the developer, Community Development Associates, to allow people who lived or worked in the city to purchase the condominiums at less than the market price. The condominiums were quickly sold. One of the buyers was Stuart Flashman. When he bought his condominium, he was required to sign an agreement which stated that the condominium he purchased would have to be owner-occupied. But soon after, things changed.
I bought in November, at least I signed the agreement to buy in November, and by the time I moved in January, they had apparently changed things and that agreement was no longer required. I later asked someone about it from the Redevelopment Agency, and they said it was that they had trouble selling off the units.
We asked Director of Development Mark Buell if the units were difficult to sell.
Not at all.
How quickly did they sell?
They were sold out by the time the project was finished.
One person who bought 2 condo units was John LaCoste, who's the police chief in Emeryville. And other people who bought them were people who were involved with the developers or people who were involved with the real estate company that sold the units. And 2 of the wives of city council members bought units here.
Because of state law, council members were ineligible for the loan program. Although Mayor Fox did not buy a condominium in Emery Bay Village, in 1979 he did vote to approve the loan program from which his wife and several of her relatives received $165,000, used to purchase 2 condominiums. And the wife and brother of Councilman Jim Golden received an $85,000 low-interest loan. In order to qualify, Golden gave up his interest in the property, and he now states that his wife makes all of the payments on the property with her own money.
Well, what happened, and this is again where you run into this very sticky question. You had members of the councils that had their relatives buy instead of them. You know, what do? The mayor's name isn't there. Jim Golden's name isn't there on the ownership papers because their wives and relatives bought in. But it does raise the question, and that's the problem we have, is our public officials always get involved in some of the benefits. Part of our democratic system, and I really feel this most sincerely, is when you're elected to public office, you keep your hand out of the public cookie jar. In this city, you generally find 2 hands dipped in right to the hilt.
But what has happened that has turned Steve Shaddix and a large segment of the community into an anti-development coalition? This towering building, Pacific Park Plaza, has become the focal point in a war between industry and development, as has the City Council, which serves as the board of the Redevelopment Agency. The City Council has the power to approve or deny all proposals made by the Redevelopment Agency. In nearly every issue involving development, the Council has split 3-2. Council members Fox, Spriggs, and Golden have voted pro-development. Council members Davenport and Heinz have voted against most development measures.
I would like to make this very clear. I'm not against development, but we have to do it in a rational, logical way, and we have to solve the problems that are going to be created by that development before it's developed.
In question is the relationship of Pacific Union and the Redevelopment Agency. In a highly unusual arrangement, the Emeryville Development Company Limited was given the authority to write the master plan for development of the entire Bayfront area. Mark Buell, director of the Redevelopment Agency.
EDCL is for practical purposes, Pacific Union, and they have acquired 70% of the developable sites in an area. And they came to us for a permit to build a high-rise commercial development on a piece of property.
These people have entered into an agreement with the Redevelopment Agency to do the redevelopment plan for the Bayfront. This leaves the business community out in left field because we have no input.
Industry's greatest fear is that with this new plan, they will be driven out of the Bayfront area completely. And property owners in Section 5 are concerned too, since they were not consulted as the plan was being developed. They fear that their property may not receive the same consideration as that owned by Pacific Union. The redevelopment plan submitted by EDCL was approved on August 2, 1983. On the boards are plans for two 24-story towers adjacent to Pacific Park Plaza, a shopping and commercial area, and several other high-rises. This will create over 3 million square feet of new office space, double the amount of daytime traffic, and more than double the population of Emeryville, which is now 3,400. Shaddix and the EIA blame the city for being too soft on the developers. But developer Bill Tunney, partner and project manager of Pacific Park Plaza, is pleased with the treatment his project has received.
The development process in Emeryville is one that encourages development. In contrast, many other cities have processes that discourage development, and perhaps Emeryville will get to be that way someday. But at this point in time, it's a perfect marriage between a city that wants to develop and a developer that wants to be here.
No question about it. We're working hand in glove. And it's my job to bring business to Emeryville. It's my job to get things developed in accordance with the policies the City Council has. And any developer that's been here will tell you they work very closely and in close cooperation with us, and we're proud of it.
Just how closely the Redevelopment Agency works with developers was brought to question by Council Member Davenport.
The attorney that represented the developer, Pacific Union Company, was also the attorney for the Redevelopment Agency. It was Goldfarb and Owens, and Tom Owens was their attorney. Nobody let us know that. Nobody knew that. The only reason we found out was because I was elected. And in going through the check register, which the council members get, I saw this name being paid from being paid out of city funds.
Redevelopment Director Mark Buell denies any wrongdoing by the city or by Tom Owens, also a partner in Pacific Park Plaza. But the Redevelopment Agency soon changed attorneys.
When you're talking a development program that the lowest figure is $500 million and the highest figure is $1 billion, it's a lot of money to change hands. And that's exactly where the problem is.
Whatever the outcome, the EDCL plan and Pacific Park Plaza will continue to fuel the development controversy. In recent weeks, political activity has accelerated drastically all over Emeryville. On November 8th, the city will be voting on the fate of the 3 council seats now occupied by members Davenport, Heinz, and Spriggs. 2 new newspapers have recently appeared, the Guardian and the Eagle, each backing issues and candidates which they favor. The Guardian favors the Emeryville Industries Association position, while the Eagle seems to favor the philosophy and views of Police Chief LaCoste and the developers. In our first interview with Leo Macias, he alleged that he had been approached by the publisher of the Eagle to take out an ad in the paper. It was suggested that if he did not take out an ad, he would have to pull his vending machines out of the Silks, a nightclub owned by Chuck Ramos, publisher of the Eagle. A few days later, we received a call from Leo Macias asking for a second interview. He had again been approached about taking out an ad, so our producer interviewed him once again.
Who was the person that told you that you should advertise in the Eagle, I assume?
Well, the owner, Chuck Ramos, came in and solicited me. He asked me to put an ad in the paper, and I told him I didn't know enough about the paper at that time to make a rational decision.
Did anyone else approach you on this matter?
Jim Golden asked me to consider, just mainly consider, placing an ad in that paper. And I told him I just didn't think we were going to get the kind of exposure or the kind of coverage that was going to be conducive for us to bring in more business.
So what happened after that?
Well, after that, maybe a couple of days later, I get a telephone call on the phone, and it was to the effect that to get smart, Leo, and put an ad in the paper, or else you might come to work one day and find it all burned up. I've been here for 7 years, and that's never happened to me. And I've been in other businesses for 9 and 10 years that certainly that's never happened to me. I've never been threatened in that manner before.
Are you convinced that this threat was linked somehow to your wanting to take out an ad or not wanting to take out an ad?
Well, it's certainly implied. I mean, get smart, Leo, and take out an ad. I mean, certainly that's an implication that I should take out an ad in the paper, a paper anyway. And I think because we were talking about the Eagle, that perhaps maybe that was the paper that they were referring to.
We tried to reach Chuck Ramos for a comment on the allegations made by Leo Macias. As of the day we edited this piece, Ramos had not yet returned one of our phone calls. But we were able to get an interview with Council Member Golden.
What is your connection to the Eagle, to the newspaper?
I have no connection to it.
You have none whatsoever?
None whatsoever, no.
Do you, I mean, you're not an advisor of any sort?
No.
Okay. I'm wondering, we recently talked to a person that you know, a guy named Leo Macias.
I know Leo, yes. He's a businessman here in town.
Okay, and Leo advised us that you were in his office and that you actually told him and pressured him
I'm sorry, that's just not true. Leo and I have known each other for a long time, and we were kidding around. That's all we were doing. There was absolutely no pressure. Leo indicated that he was going to stay neutral in the upcoming election, and I told him that was just fine with me. And if he intimated anything else, it's just not true.
You didn't in any way pressure him?
No.
Okay. Maybe you could answer this. Has anybody else involved with the Eagle, to your knowledge, pressured Leo Macias?
I don't think so. Can we stop for a minute?
It's a very ugly thing that's going on here. And it's very hard because when an average person, a businessman or citizen, opens their mouth, they're dealing with an establishment and an organization who immediately goes after them. And it's very hard to deal with when you get into this position.
On September 6th, we attended a city council meeting. At that meeting, Stuart Flashman and a group of citizens presented to the council petitions calling for a referendum on the redevelopment plan. The council met on this issue behind closed doors. The referendum is now on the ballot for a special election to be held December 27th. At this same meeting, another group of citizens submitted a petition calling for the recall of council members Fox and Golden. Just what the future of high-rise development in Emeryville will be is anybody's guess. But one thing is certain. Up until September, Tom Wienis, although pleading poverty, still held a considerable financial interest in the Pacific Park Plaza. As the November 8th council election nears, the factions have split. Heinz and Davenport are on different tickets, and John LaCoste is busy campaigning for Esther Spriggs. The outcome of the city election, the recall, and the referendum will have some impact, but it seems that the freewheeling, Wild West nature of Emeryville will change very little.